King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia once described Yemen's security as inseparable from that of Saudi Arabia's, clearly outlining that the kingdom will continue to play a role in the way things are done in Yemen. As new developments change the political landscape in Yemen, is Saudi Arabia losing its grip on the country? In this edition of the debate, we delve right into Saudi Arabia's backyard and discuss a role the House of Saud is playing in the recent developments of Yemen.
A bloody day in the capital, Sana'a, as a bomber blew up his explosives among a crowd of anti-government Shia protesters. Dozens of people, including several children, were killed. Some who witnessed the moment of the blast were quick to point the finger of blame toward President Hadi.
Every official in this country, from Abdurrabbuh Mansour Hadi to the smallest one, are responsible for this crime.
We demonstrated for our legitimate demands. Such violence is reminiscent of former regimes' actions which we toppled. We hold President Abdurrabbuh Mansour Hadi fully responsible for this bombing.
Elsewhere, nearly 24 Yemeni soldiers lost their lives in a shooting and bombing attack in the southern province of Hadramaut.
This suicide attack could have been prevented if it wasn't for Abdurrabbuh Mansour Hadi's hesitating political approach in dealing with the problems which the Yemeni people are facing.
The attacks came only hours after new Prime Minister Ahmed bin Mubarak stepped down. President Hadi chose his chief of staff as Yemen's PM on Tuesday. The Houthis and their allies rejected the pick, saying that bin Mubarak did not represent the will of the nation.
With all respect to the nominated person, Ahmed bin Mubarak, but he lacks some qualifications so that he was not agreed by all political forces. And also the worst thing is he was appointed by foreign embassies and they want to impose him. This is a blatant interference in the affairs of the country.
Bin Mubarak was a member of Saddam Hussein's Ba'ath Party when he was studying in Iraq. Reports say President Hadi met with the American and Saudi envoys shortly before the appointment.
Abdurrabbuh Mansour Hadi deals with ambassadors of Western countries as if he's a doll in their hands. They are issuing direct orders and he performs decrees.
The Saudi and American interference in Yemen's politics has not been limited to bin Mubarak's case. Following the 2011 revolution against longtime ruler Ali Abdullah Saleh, Washington and Riyadh played a key role in convincing Saleh to hand power to his then deputy Abdurrabbuh Mansour Hadi. Later, Saleh settled in Saudi Arabia. He is now believed to be living in Ethiopia. Yemen's Army General Ali Mohsen al-Ahmar, who was behind the brutal crackdown on anti-government protesters in 2011 and 2014, has also taken refuge in Saudi Arabia. The latest developments in Yemen and the continuation of violence against protesters showed that the Arab country is way off from the security and stability which the nation seeks. The events are also further proof that some anti-revolutionary forces backed by foreign countries are going every way to disrupt the peaceful transition of power in Yemen.
Well, let's start off by introducing our guests. Joining us from Belfast is author and Middle East affairs expert Saeb Shaath. And joining us from London is a former Yemeni ambassador to Lebanon and Cyprus, Mohamed Qubaty. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us in this edition of the debate. Mr. Shaath, let me begin with you. Now, Bernard Hakel with the Foreign Affairs magazine has said, and I'm quoting him now, Saudi Arabia has historically tried to keep Yemen's central government weak and its political actors divided. Now, the thought of a strong and united Yemen gives the Saudi royals a pause. What is it about a strong Yemen that threatens Saudi Arabia?
This is a historical kind of ideology and belief. The Saudis acted on it according to the British Empire's advice from the beginning. When the British occupied Aden in south of Yemen and then Egypt and then wanted to monopolize the whole Arabian Peninsula. From that days, this kind of plans and geopolitics works. The Saudis, they believe a strong Yemen, a revolutionary Yemen in the 60s, during their war of liberation from the English, gonna influence their people in Saudi Arabia and arm them with the knowledge they can topple the kingdom as well as the Yemenis defeated the British occupation. And from there, the Saudis started to support all the reactionary forces in Yemen to fight the Yemeni revolution. When the Egyptian revolutionary president Nasser of Egypt sent the Egyptian army to defend the people of Yemen and to support the Yemeni revolution, Israel got involved in that. The British got involved in the 60s, lots of foreign actors, and on top of that, of course, the Saudis. From then, the 60s up till today, Saudi Arabia always trying to weaken and any establishment of any secure, a strong leadership in Yemen who can organize the people behind a strong leadership to build a civil society strong. They want to see it a tribal society divided, and Saudi Arabia can buy and sell the tribal leaders according to its interests in the area. And at the same time, that kind of weak Yemen can help the United States of America and the Western allies to bring trouble to the area when they want, through the fanatics groups as we see in Al-Qaeda.
Okay, we'll get to the issue of Al-Qaeda in just a bit. Let me bring in Mr. Qubaty. Mr. Qubaty, what is your response to this? Does Saudi Arabia want a weakened Yemeni state?
Let me first point to the very sad day which today Yemen has lived in. We have lost more than 70 Yemenis. I mean, the carnage which happened today in Sana'a is totally condemned. It's quite abhorring. I think it left many of us very much bewildered and in total, dilemma. Why should this go on? And this is a result of weakening the country. If you weaken Yemen, then you bring up these, crazy people who are now, rocking the whole country and bringing it to its foundations. I don't think that the Saudis, if they look clearly into the whole, picture, it's going to really injure themselves. I think a stable Yemen is for the benefit of the whole region and on the whole world. Indeed, anarchy and chaos in Yemen means anarchy and chaos in the back garden of the Saudis. And if they think that that is, the result of this weakening of Yemen, which has, started over the past, decades, is eventually going to affect its neighbors, and first amongst them, I think, the Saudis. To which extent do such a thing is being understood and very much well believed in Saudi Arabia? That's a question which a lot of people would like to answer. But I would like to point out to a recent article which appeared in I don't know if this could be clear or if they could zoom into this. This is a map of the new Middle East as been drawn by, shown by one of the periodicals under the state of redrawing the Middle East. It shows that it is aiming at dividing the Saudi Arabia into 3 countries. Is that what the Saudis are after? It looks as if we are heading towards such a thing, The Saudis, if they don't really understand the consequences of an unstable Yemen, then perhaps this, article which came out, as I said, 3 months ago, at this periodical called Global Research, is the end result of what we have started to see today in Yemen. The events have been very close to Saudi Arabia. The killing of the Yemeni troops, 30 of them, was not far from the Saudi border. And 2 months earlier, we have seen the same people. They have crossed the border and went into the Saudi town of Ash-Sharura, and they managed to kill 5 of the intelligent, or 3 of the intelligent officers there. So this is a thing which all of us have got to think of a stable Yemen is good for the region and for the world.
Right, Mr. Shaath, I see you nodding in agreement over there. And as it is a clear consensus here that an unstable part of the Middle East is going to affect the rest of the Middle East, be it Yemen, be it Bahrain, or be it Syria. However, right now, many are talking about how Saudi Arabia is concerned about this democratic movement that we're seeing, not just in Yemen, but throughout the region, where people are rising up to demand their rights, to demand freedom of choice. Do you think Saudi Arabia is concerned that if this happens in its backyard, it's going to happen on its soil too? And we've already seen it happening in the eastern parts of Saudi Arabia, for example. Is Saudi Arabia afraid of democracy coming to the land?
Of course, the regime of Saudi Arabia don't forget at all how they came themselves to power, how they created the first Al Saud state and failed the second and failed this third Al Saud. It was brought up to being by violence, massive waves of violence, of intimidating the people of Arabia. They created a group at the beginning called Al-Ikhwan al-Wahhabiyin, which is exactly the Daesh, take it as which is ISIL prototype. They acting on that. That kind of violence exactly was created by Al Saud and implemented. And since then, they rule Arabia by that kind of violence and intimidation. There is no rule of law in Saudi Arabia. There is the House of Saud controlling the Arabia, and there is no any kind of institution. There is no kind of system. There is people in Saudi Arabia, they face poverty worse than any poor state in Africa, and all of that system is supported and in place and protected by the interest of the empire, the United States of America and its allies, Western allies. Any movement like what's happening in Yemen can influence the mood, especially in the eastern side of Saudi Arabia, which have revolutionary movement in there, and that is the richest side of Saudi Arabia, where is the oil and the wealth. And they don't want to see that the people in there are trying to call for their rights and trying to call for even constitutional monarchy. That's why a successful revolution like what happened in Yemen in the last couple of 3 or 4 weeks, which has achieved a total victory and a kind of reconciliation between the state and the revolutionaries, and it started to building institution, and they don't want to see transfer of power to this new successful revolution because it will be a precedent over Arabia, and that can happen in Saudi Arabia, and that can happen in Bahrain or in Qatar. And that's why now we can unleash the Al-Qaeda thugs to attack the protesters. This is unbelievable when you see suiciders going in the middle of the civilians and blow themselves up to stop them from going to the streets to protest. And in that itself, that kind of attack, it doesn't even impose questions. It answers to the Yemeni people a lot of the questions. Who are these people who's doing that to the civilians? Why are they doing that? What is the aim from all of this? And why now? The timing, the goals, all of these answers exactly coincide. They achieve exactly what the ambassador of the United States of America tries to do all along.
Well, speaking of which, Mr. Qubaty, suicide bombings, bomb explosives-laden cars, this is a legacy of Takfiri militant organizations like Al-Qaeda. We've seen it happen in Afghanistan. We've seen it happen in Iraq. Do you think that that's the same ideology being perpetrated and supported, for example, by Saudi Arabia in Yemen?
Unfortunately, this sort of brainwashing has been going on for a rather long time in Yemen now. I think the former regime played an important role in trying, because it was trying to hold the Western countries at ransom by saying that the whole country will move towards terrorism, and it paid lip service towards fighting terrorism. But on the other hand, it thought of Al-Qaeda being the best money raiser for the regime. So this is now a legacy of the previous dictator, which I think the world has been looking at, and our brothers in Saudi Arabia did not actually take a stance against such a sort of the whole idea of moving and brainwashing people is a new culture, unfortunately, which has been related to Islam, and Islam is far away from it. But I think the question with the Saudis are, on your previous notes, is that the Saudis have been part of these 10 countries who were the sponsors of the National Dialogue Conference. And the outcome of the National Dialogue Conference have been agreed on towards building a new democratic and federal Yemen. And that new state will be built on law and order and institutions. And the third dimension is not only federalism, but also it has got to give a true share for the people of the South, where I come from, the Southerners. They should feel that they are real partners, and they should not be taken lightly as participants. So they have been given half of the share in running the country vis-a-vis their brothers in the North. The big question is, all these 10 countries which have stood besides the National Dialogue Conference, were they truly siding with the outcome, with these outcomes, and do they want to see the results of this conference to be implemented? Because now it's 10 months since we have finished that National Dialogue Conference. I was a member in it, and we see that all of those outcomes are going to slip from our hands, and then the country is going down a slide towards anarchy and chaos.
Well, that's a very interesting point you raised there. Mr. Shaath, speaking of the National Dialogue Conference, as Mr. Qubaty has highlighted, Saudi Arabia was part of the group of countries that sat down and mapped this National Dialogue Conference out. However, at the same time, when you couple it with Saudi Arabia's support for parties like the Islah Party and General Mohsen al-Ahmar, isn't that a paradox?
I'm sorry to use the term I'm going to use. Saudi Arabia changed moods like a pregnant woman. It's when the revolution in Yemen suited them, the Muslim Brotherhoods, to run the Yemen, they supported that because that's what Obama's administration wanted all over the Arab world. When the Brotherhoods, Muslim Brotherhoods collapsed in Egypt, and it was the turn now to fight them, and the revolutionaries in Yemen managed to kick Hizb al-Islah and the Muslim Brotherhoods out recently, Saudi Arabia, everybody was saying, what's wrong with Saudi Arabia is watching. I said myself, they are watching to see the revolutionaries getting rid of the Muslim Brotherhoods, which they are considering now their enemy number one. And after that, Saudi Arabia will move on the revolutionaries and will plunge Yemen in a kind of sectarian war to destabilize them again. And I was proven right. And that's what Saudi Arabia is doing now. It is trying, before subsidized the government for a while, then attacked it, subsidized the national dialogue, then attacked it, and now they are plunging the country in chaos to see what kind of policy they want in Yemen. They want very weak government in Yemen. They want Yemen, Sunnis fighting Shi'is, a tribe fighting each other. And as I said, Saudi Arabia is the decider of the future of the poor people in Yemen, who can live and who can die. That's what Saudis want, to play gods in Yemen.
Well, speaking of which, Mr. Qubaty, can the Saudi stake in Yemeni politics ever be removed from the equation? Or is Yemen always destined to be exploited by its large neighbor?
Unfortunately, it's quite, disheartening for us in Yemen. Yemen is a big country, 25 million. It's nearly the same population of the whole of the Gulf or the GCC countries. So it was really worrying for us. We thought that at one time they will take care of the Yemenis. They want stability there. They would help, the different programs of education, for health, and for development in the country, because that would have been for their benefit. I think that they really were caught, wrong-footed, and now these sufferings of the Yemenis, the whole country been tormented into a lot of, for the past 10 years or 20 years since the unification of the South and North, has gone downwards towards in development, and you could see that economically it has been run down. I think that is now what we are seeing is the result of such policies which never actually wanted to help the Yemenis, because the Yemenis would have been a great asset for the whole of the Arabian Peninsula. Whether that is now being realized with a hind sight is a question to be answered by our brothers in the GCC. I think they have got to realize without helping the Yemenis, then they will be facing chaos in the whole area. And, hopefully that they realize now that they have got to work with the Yemenis and leave the Yemenis, to tread their way towards, a democratic and federal Yemen. And, we could live together peacefully, and it should be for their benefit.
Right, Mr. Shaath, I'm going to put the same question to you. We're quickly running out of time. Can Yemen independently forge its path towards democracy, or will Saudi interests always be an obstacle?
It's up to the Saudi people and the Saudi leadership, political leadership, to get a strong president, to build a strong army, and to forge a united government according to the national reconciliations agendas, and on that stop any foreign interference. And from there they can take it. Nobody would dare come near Yemen. Yemen have a very intelligent population. If they stop the foreign interference, they'll have a brilliant future.
Okay, let's leave it there for now. That was Saeb Shaath. He's an author and Middle East affairs expert, joining us via Skype from Belfast. Joining us from London was the former Yemeni ambassador to Lebanon and Cyprus, Mohamed Qubaty. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your input in today's discussion. And of course, to our viewers, thank you very much for joining us in this edition of The Debate. From me and the entire team here in Tehran, it's goodbye.